We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies. Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We're here to talk about asset types. We got Mike in the studio with us today, Trevor, Howard, and I'm Gabe. And Dane is not here. Dane left us again. He was here for 1 week, and now he's gone again.
Screw Dane. It was really fun.
We love you, Dane.
We do, Dane. Trevor complained about not having $200 million of assets under management.
And
Gabe's like, dude, 6 months.
I wasn't complaining. I was just stating facts.
You were stating facts.
I mean, 200 mil is kind of a hard thing to do in 6 months.
When you're stating a fact, it's like, this is a problem. And Gabe's like, well, relatively, it's not a problem. You're like, but this is the goal and this is the problem. Gabe's like, yeah, but not really. But this is what we set out to. Yeah, but look what we accomplished.
Yeah, but it wasn't what we set out to do.
Yeah.
That's why I hate goals.
Yeah.
Well, you shouldn't have set that goal.
I think I just set my goals too high.
No.
I just can't be
No,
mad
you
about
let
it.
him set a goal that you didn't want to have.
No, he set the goal and I doubled it.
Oh, that's right. The ego happens.
Let's double it again. Let's go 400.
400 million asset under AUM.
Well, we're
AUM,
going
right?
for $1 billion,
Assets under management.
So Trevor's going to lead us today. We want to talk about different asset types. What do you want to know, Trevor?
Yeah, so I'm looking at other asset types like these mixed-use buildings. I'm looking at them. They're like 80% occupied. You can buy them at a 7.5 cap as is, like under $100 a square foot. I'm looking at these things. I'm like, these seem like decent deals to me.
So the first thing you ask yourself is, why can you get it at that price?
And why is it still available?
Exactly.
And it had been for sale. These buildings have been for sale for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
You know
is
the
it?
answer, right?
That's what
Liquidity. They are less liquid. Fewer lenders want to lend on them. Fewer people want to own them. Fewer people want to buy them. There's just less liquidity to it. Creates less effective demand.
Who does buy that deal? Who's the buyer?
Usually it's an occupant, right? At some point they have their business in there, or they're in one of the units, or they want to create a short-term rental business.
Or at least partial occupancy. Yeah.
But if I'm looking at the deal and I can buy it at a 7.5 cap, I can get 6% debt on it. I can potentially leave the seller in the deal with me for some more leverage. And it has upside.
So now that changes the equation. So we just answered the question of why can you get it for that price and why is it still available? Is the answer, well, I don't want to go pay cash for this thing. And so the way I look at the asset class is, well, how do you shift risk through deal structure?
Yeah. So, well, I don't know. So Gabe was telling me too that I'm ego investing, which I agree with. He's like, you're just looking at that building and you think it's a cool building. I was like,
There's nothing wrong with having sexy real estate in your portfolio.
Yeah,
Should be
there
a
is.
foundation. Sexiness should be a piece of how you evaluate your life.
Sexiness is what comes later once you have a foundation.
I love the pieces of shit I bought to begin with. That 1970s triplex in
It's
Tualatin.
where you made your money.
yeah. So he was right about that. But I still look at him like this seems like an attractive deal, and I don't know why. I don't know the space, so I know I'm missing.
So I own retail. I have a little tiny bit of office, but not very much. I'd say my portfolio is probably 95% multifamily, maybe 5% retail, something like that. And we just bought a self-storage, so we're doing that. I've learned about myself in just recent weeks that I think that I am a direct-to-consumer real estate operator and not a B2B, business-to-business operator. I watch what some of my clients and friends are doing, fighting with restaurant owners and office tenants who are just skipping out and not paying. And I think once you get into office, retail, and industrial, you have to understand your audience now is business. And if you're renting to Amazon or the government or something like that, sure, it may be a 20-year lease. It may be great, right? There may be no problem. But for me, I really like multifamily, mobile home park, self-storage because it's a direct-to-consumer. It works for my brain. And maybe as we grow, maybe I'll change my mind about that. But part of that is just the tenant base and how to deal with them. When a retail building goes vacant, first off, it takes several months normally to rent that space. You got to find just the right tenant. Then you're going to scratch a big check to a leasing agent who went out and brokered that for you to bring it to you. So not only are you having more vacancy, now you're going to pay somebody to bring you a tenant. Then that tenant's going to want TIs, tenant improvements. And instead of spending 10 or 20 grand on a multifamily turn, you're going to spend maybe 100 grand, 200 grand, 500 grand on some of these buildings to do a big TI to meet their needs. And you're going to offer some allowance, and maybe the tenant pays for part of that, or maybe some of it's paid in their rent. Even if it's paid in their rent, you're now the lender for their TI. So they do a $500,000 TI, and you say, that's cool, I'll give you a $250 credit, but you're going to have to pay for the other $250. Well, now you're still coming up with the full $500 because they don't have the cash to do that TI typically. So you become a bank to your tenants on top of being their landlord. Then they have a bad month, something happens, COVID hits, whatever. They can't pay their rent. Well, in a multifamily deal, we can just send an eviction notice and say, non-payment of rent, you got to move out.
Isn't it easier to evict
No, with business to business, you don't go lock them out. You work with them. It's a different interaction. Because think about it. You don't want them to leave.
Yeah.
So I've seen owners let people go months and months and months and build up a receivable because they don't want them to leave. They want to work with them continually, because if they leave, it's going to cost them so much money in vacancy and fees and TIs that it doesn't make any sense to let them leave. Like, you want them. The whole point of owning a building like that is to have a business that wants to be there forever, that's there for 20, 30 years or whatever, and you never have to think about it. It's a coupon clipper. It prints cash. You don't think about it. One day, maybe they'll move and we'll deal with it then. You're not thinking about these people leaving every year or every couple of years like we do in multifamily.
All these problems you're giving me, it's just math, though.
Okay, so you got to bake in much higher vacancy loss. Yeah. You got to bake in much higher leasing fees. You got to bake in TIs. Mm-hmm. It is math. But if you do the math, I'm telling you about on that 7.5 cap, you're going to go, oh, this deal doesn't work.
Okay.
That's what I think. Now, I mean, I'm going to tell you the primary reason why I don't love commercial, like retail office from an investment standpoint. We're equity traders. We try to build equity as fast as we possibly can. We're not typically looking for cash flow. This might actually be our cash flow play, but we're typically looking for equity pops. And these leases are, if you're in Oregon, you get 3-year leases, 5-year leases. We don't do it in Salem anyway. We don't do a ton of 10 and 20-year leases. But even in those 5-year leases, you've got escalators built into your rents to where maybe in the first 5 years, the rent doesn't go up at all. And if it does, it only goes up 2 or 3%. Now we're trying to tie escalators to CPI and say, like, okay, it's going to be a percentage of CPI or whatever that is. Still, like, you're not going to see the appreciation in an office and retail building like you'll see in a multifamily building. Multifamily will double in value approximately every 8 to 10 years, whereas an office and retail building will take closer to 20 years to do the same thing.
See, because people are having problems with it, though, I'm attracted to it because we can structure it creatively. So, like that deal I was telling you, it's whatever, $4 or $5 million. We can leave the owner in as a pref equity partner.
Well, that's what Mike just said. If you can structure the deal, take out the risk
and the liquidity portion of it.
So then my question is it's just not worth it at that point still because the upside isn't high enough? Now you're
well, think about is this a 10-year deal? Are they coming in as equity or debt? Like, what are the terms of your agreement with the seller if you leave them in?
Yeah, so it sounds like what we would do is equity from the seller for a portion, plus a tenant wants to also be an investor within the deal.
Okay.
And then you have everything you need.
So what happens when your loan expires? You get what are you putting on it? 10-year money?
Probably, yeah.
And what happens when that loan expires?
Well, you got to figure that out on the front end. Who's the controlling partner, right?
So you're going to go try to do a refi.
Or sell it, I don't know.
And it's got to have more value, hopefully.
Well, over 10 years, you're paying down 22%.
I've sold retail, office, and industrial buildings in this market that were purchased 5 years ago that haven't gone up a penny in value.
Yeah, because think of it this way. So your P&L is on the opposite side of their P&L. And so on the residential side, the P&L on the opposite side of your P&L, the last thing they will not, or the first thing they will pay for is your income stream, their house. They're going to pay for their house. It's
because they got to have somewhere to live.
Right. On the other side, if you're renting to a business, it's their business P&L, which is the first thing they're going to let go before they get into their personal P&L. Some business owners will go from their personal P&L to keep their business afloat, but that's more of a rare thing. Then the other thing is your income stream is directly tied to the value or their ability to create income as a business. And so that asset class is much more tied to the economy. And so if it's more of a timing play, residential, you can just buy it, you can just hold it, and you're going to have equity at the end. On the mixed use and on the commercial side, you have to time it right with the economic cycles. So you can get a good buy and a really good deal structure in March of 2022, and your loan comes due in 2027 and be screwed because you bought it at a top of a economic cycle, and now you're in a position because of the debt is not long-term fixed debt. You don't have control of the event and where that's at in the economic cycle. So you're much more tied to the market than you are just the fundamentals of the deal.
Yeah, I mean, when we're buying an apartment building, we're thinking about, do people want to live here? Is this a good neighborhood? Is there crime? Is there, do they have services nearby? Is there a grocery store close, schools, and all the other stuff? When you're buying a commercial building, you got to think about, okay, well, this is the kind of commercial building I like. And one of the commercial buildings you're looking at is a large downtown building full of attorneys that sits across the street from the courthouse. Now, in my mind, that building's always going to be full of attorneys. Like, unless they decide to move the courthouse or some weird thing happens, there are some variables here that maybe for whatever reason they decide that's not where the attorneys need to be. But I think you have a very stable tenant base, and attorneys typically pay their rent. Of course, they're also going to be the first ones to sue you. And so, they're going to find a complaint about the building, or they're going to have some other problem with you. And they just sit down one afternoon, the way you write an offer, they're going to sit down and write a lawsuit against you. Mm-hmm. So, there is that risk. But I mean, I don't know. I think that, ultimately it's just a matter of, why would we go put the effort in to go buy a $5 million asset that's going to go up, 20% over the next 10 years versus go buy a $5 million asset that's going to double in value in 7 or 8 years?
Because we're supposed to put 3 deals under contract this quarter.
It's a bad reason.
I try to hit our goals.
You don't do deals just to do deals. That's what'll get you in. That'll get you in trouble. Goals will get you in trouble.
My ego said I needed to do this, and I did it, and now I really regret it.
Gabe said we needed to do 3 deals. So now
we need to do the right deals.
3 smart deals.
The right deals.
So you think there's no shot, very low likelihood of those deals making sense in any world?
I don't know. I will say that I do own some buildings that are just only retail, and what's funny is I felt about them then the way I'm talking about right now, I actually almost backed out of one of them a couple of times. I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this deal. I don't want this deal. But the numbers just made sense, I thought. And once we closed, it made more sense than I realized. And really, there's some of the best cash flowing assets that I own. Now, I need some cash flow because I buy other stuff that bleeds. And, we have CapEx and everything going with other projects. And so if you could buy a retail deal with no money out of pocket that makes you $20,000 a month in cash flow every month, sure, that's a risk to me worth taking, because even if a tenant moves out, and what I like about my buildings is they run a little more like multifamily because they're very small spaces. We don't use leasing agents because they're small markets, so my property manager rents them out. We don't do big major TI. We go in and turn them like an apartment unit. So these are buildings that act a lot more like apartments than like what you would see in retail downtown Salem. But they make me money. We do end up with more turnover in our space than probably most retail buildings would have. But they're low cost. People can easily move in. It doesn't cost me a ton of money to get them in. And then they may stay for a year or two. And a lot of them go out of business because they're just entry level businesses that don't know, they just can't make it. And so, it works, and it works really well. I mean, these buildings do well for me. But even with the cash flow I'm making on them, I didn't change my whole model and go, I'm going to go buy nothing but small retail and office in small markets. It was just happened to work out good, and I'm glad I did those deals. But it's not something that sings to me that I want to be 50% of my portfolio.
What happened with the office building you were looking at, Mike? Did someone buy it?
Yeah, the remaining block owner bought it. They still haven't done anything with it.
They closed on it?
Yeah. Yeah. And like they had 24 hours for their earnest money to go hard. 100% earnest money to go hard, 24 hours.
Couple $100,000?
No. The entire purchase.
The entire purchase price had to go hard in 24 hours?
Yeah.
Whoa. It was a few $1 million deal, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, they got a $2 million less than what we were in escrow for.
Really?
Could you go buy it from them?
Maybe.
Yeah, I've met with them. We've had conversations about it. But you know me, I don't want that building with the entire block. You're in the entire block. Let's get the entire fucking block. They didn't like that proposal.
Because they want the entire block.
No, they're working on. They'll sell it. There's a conversation to be. I got distracted with the care facility. To answer and to get onto your what I was going to say about this is you have to look at not just that vacuum, that deal in a vacuum, but understand how does that fit into the diversification of your portfolio. Because one thing you may want to do is like the property Gabe just explained. That's probably a really nice piece of diversification to your over asset portfolio. It increases your probably return on equity on that building's good, so it increases your real estate schedule from a global DSCR standpoint.
It works. That's not why I did it. I just did it because it was a deal. I just,
Yeah, but it
I'm
fits
like,
well.
I was just Trevor. Oh, I need to do more deals. I'm going to do a deal, and I just bought
So
it.
you just did a deal and it didn't hurt you.
It worked out really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them work out really well. Some do hurt.
So then he's right. You just go fucking buy deals.
Well, maybe. He might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he wants to talk about, I don't think that we would ever shift our focus
Yes.
want to take on and just become retail.
No,
and office
I don't want to
investors.
do that. I just want to buy more deals.
Yeah, and that's where
And
incremental
this
change.
is as we were looking, you were looking and you're like, look into these two deals. And then I took them further. I was like, oh, I think we can do these deals. And now you're telling me we shouldn't do the deal.
I'm not telling you shouldn't do it. I'm just telling you why.
He's giving you the level of risk you haven't evaluated yet, so you just haven't met his underwriting guidelines.
Yeah. Okay.
Because remember when we started with value add multifamily, you said, oh, it's just math. And then you did all the spreadsheets and we bought them. And then I said, well, how come we're losing so much money? And you said, well, because I did all the math wrong.
No. My math was on point. We didn't execute on the plan. Dude, I killed our budget without knowing how to do a budget on that. I said,
okay,
I came up with
so this is the same thing. You have to be able to do the math right. You got to know what the risk. If you start baking in $200,000 TIs and 9 months of vacancy on every vacant space, and a $50,000 or $25,000 commission every time you rent a space, like start baking that into the numbers, and then tell me if you still like that 7.5 cap.
Okay.
I still don't think it's cheap enough. I think with the right structure and the seller staying in the deal as equity, you certainly could massage it to make it work. But just on the open market, there's a reason, like Mike said, why it's still sitting there and nobody's bought it at a 7.5 cap, because nobody wants it at a 7.5 cap. It's not enough. Mm-hmm. That's not sexy enough to go take on that risk. It's just risk and reward.
Yeah.
Yep.
You were saying a good return on equity. What is a good return on equity?
In relativity to the rest of the portfolio.
Okay.
Right. So if you think of your real estate schedule, you have a global DSCR. Some properties increase that. Some properties bring it down.
Yeah, because don't you not want a good return on equity? Because that means you have too much equity and you got to go relever. So
it's just a different problem. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, you're just looking at you look at a building that's got $1 million in equity and you're not cash flowing. Well, let's go move that $1 million into something that cash flows.
Yeah, getting a low return on equity is not a good thing. It means you're not being good to steward to your portfolio.
But it's time to get out of your equity when your return on equity is too high.
Well, if you can buy a 7.5 cap,
it's just opportunity costs.
Yeah, in the opportunity cost comes with the lower, not the higher.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yep.
You're looking at it inversely. Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah. It's all right. I called my 15x was 150x. Forgot it.
Oh, you admit it now?
Yeah, my math was bad.
Yeah. Thank you.
On
You're
the
yelling
moment,
at me for like 10 minutes.
No, the thought process wasn't wrong. The math.
You're just 1-0 off,
and that's not what we were arguing about.
Yeah. I pointed that out like 3 times, but you guys wouldn't listen to me.
I listened to it because I was right.
Listen.
Okay. All right. So we'll buy this deal then, and the other one we were looking at, and see how
Does
it
he
goes.
ever listen to anything you say?
No. Usually he does the opposite of what I tell him to do, and then he comes back to tell me I'm right.
It's a reoccurring problem that keeps happening.
This is how he learns. It's like banging your head against a wall, and then you come around like, oh, I should have banged the other side of my head. I would have been fine.
You got to feel the pain.
Yeah.
I can tell you that, Paul can go downtown and buy all the buildings he wants because he's Paul and he's got 2,000 apartment units. Once you have a base, if that's where you decide you want to go make stupid decisions about your money.
I don't want to make dumb decisions. I don't want to ego invest. So,
it's still a building that's going to go
freaking building to own.
Buying that. Here's what I'll say: buying that building would be smarter than buying a Lamborghini.
Well, sure.
So if you want to ego invest, if you want to be an ego person, buy that building and not a Lamborghini, because you will make money in that building. It's just going to be hard. It's going to be harder to make money in that building than it will be in other buildings that we buy.
Yeah. So the opportunity cost of it may not be there, but I feel like it is, because then I get to test out this new purchasing model that we want to use potentially. So I get to go through the exercise and nail that in.
You want to know what something else is from an operation standpoint? This is a lot more sophisticated than what we do in apartments.
You have to weigh the distractions. So going back to the last episode where you guys were arguing about a goal that you shouldn't have set. One thing you kept going to is it took us so long to raise the capital. It took us because it was a brand new structure. So what are you saying right now? You're going to go do something that's going to take you a lot of time.
Yeah.
If it led us down a road to where we would do more of these and duplicate, it would be worth the trial. Just like we're doing on self-storage. I believe even if we lose money on our first self-storage deal, we're going to learn enough to know if we want to stay in that asset type or not. I can tell you already, if we made a bunch of money on this retail deal, we wouldn't just suddenly go buy a bunch of retail deals. There might be some retail deals out there that we want.
So I also like this because we can convert it to multifamily partially. And now we have Mark, who...
No, you can't.
God.
You do not have the financial feasibility to convert it to residential. That is, throw that fucking
I don't
idea
know,
out the
dude.
window.
The broker
Throw
told
it out
me
the-
so.
Oh, my God.
The broker said
Wait,
it.
Even
which
though he's a
building?
reputable broker, that's still...
Both.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
I don't know. I was just going to ask Mark, and then he'll tell me.
I do not like that model. I do not at all.
Dude, I wouldn't be having this conversation right now if you didn't tell me to go look at these deals.
I just told you that they're available and you should take a look.
And then I did it. Now I'm trying to piece the deal
When I
together.
tell you to look at a deal, it doesn't mean I'm telling you to do the deal. I just said go look at this deal.
Gabe, keep your dog on a fucking leash. Make sure he's smelling the right shit. Don't send him down that trail.
By the way, I send him like 10 things a day, and these are the 2 that he
focuses
No,
on.
I did. I tried to do all of them.
It doesn't. When I send you something, it doesn't mean we should do the deal. I'm just saying, hey,
No,
look I'm
to
sending
go
it to
do
you
the
to
deal.
say, do you think we should do something like this?
Well, and then I try to go do the deal to figure out if I should do it. Mm-hmm. I start taking it down.
I noticed that as a problem with investors, especially around us, is they get into the middle of a deal and then it's just like you're emotionally attached to the deal itself, and you start to not see clearly. And you just want to do the deal because it's like now it's under contract. Now I have to do this.
Never done that.
I don't want to lose my earnest money. I don't want to lose face. I don't,
I don't think we do that. I was just doing these because...
Well, think about our Portland deal where we were going to, Dane cried when we lost that deal, remember?
This is Dane was a rookie.
Yeah.
It was his first big deal.
He's sensitive. He's a sensitive guy.
Well, he was brokering it too, so that's a sad day when you lose a deal you got in your pipeline. But I think that it's really critical to tell yourself over and over again, just because I can, it doesn't mean I should. Because we can go out and own a whole bunch of shit we should not own. Mm-hmm. We can pull it off. We're dangerous now because we have a schedule of real estate and we have a balance sheet that says we can go borrow money and we can actually go do deals other people can't do. We have to be very careful to not step into a world that we shouldn't step into, because one bad deal like that is going to wipe out all your goals for the next 10 years if you do the wrong deal.
I kind of want to do the deals.
Let's try. Let's write an offer. Let's offer them $1 million under asking, or they can contribute 50% of their equity for 20% ownership. I don't know. There's math that you can do that'll make the deal structure.
Yeah. Okay.
What are we talking about again? Oh, going into different asset types.
Classes. So why do you like mobile home parks? You've never been in mobile home parks.
I like the idea of mobile home parks. I haven't owned them, but I mean, it's basically an apartment, but you're renting
P&L on the opposite side of your P&L.
Yeah.
Wasn't that a mobile home park deal that some broker sent you that you passed to me that they were like, you can stabilize it to it with a rent bump, you'll get it to a six
cap. Yeah. It was like 120,000 a space or something.
160. Yeah. So
160?
Jan was just showing me yesterday. So after you said we should get mobile home parks, I texted Jan. I said, Jan, can we do a mobile home park deal with you? He's like, sure. And he's like, I'm buying this one right now. It was $20,000 a pad or whatever.
There we go.
And I was like, when you look at a deal like this, what do you think? I sent him that deal.
He's laughing.
Yeah, just laughing. And I was just like, because I don't know that space, but he seems to just buy stuff like insanely cheap. And I'm assuming we would pay more than he would.
Yeah, depending on the structure we get. I like it because you're renting out a parking space for their house and providing utilities. Like, I think that you don't have the turns. You're not worried about vacancy. I think the cost to run them is a lot more stable. Yeah. And I think your appreciation, it used to be they didn't appreciate. Now they go up. So if you can get into a market where it's going to go from 20 to 100 a space.
Can you build mobile home parks?
In some I don't know if all markets are this way, but like in our markets here, they don't let you build new ones. They don't want them. Even though it's the most affordable housing option, it is probably the answer to the affordable housing crisis. They're ugly. People don't like them.
Yeah, but I understand it from a supply and demand standpoint, but from a cost of money standpoint, and a cap of income standpoint is my concern is, can the incomes grow fast enough to offset higher for longer?
I believe so. I think that, think about if I would have said 3 or 4 years ago that an entry-level house in Salem, Oregon costs you over $3,000 a month mortgage, right? That's never going to change. So then you go down. What I like about this is my thinking is like lowest common denominator thinking. I'm trying to think of who's the biggest audience. The biggest audience are people who are low income. Mm-hmm. There's more people without money than there are with money. And so this is why I like to buy a C and D class apartment complex and improve it, is because I know that those tenants are more than likely not going to be moving up into buying homes. And I know that if the recession hits and they lose their job, they're probably not going to be going down a step. So we're right in that bread and butter spot. And I think that mobile home park is just special because there's nothing lower in the denominator than mobile home park other than being homeless.
But I look at him as a really good forced appreciation, good value add asset play, but I don't know that a stabilized mobile home park will have as much value as a stabilized multifamily building going forward.
I don't know that it'll have as much, but I think the scale will climb. I think the appreciation pace will keep pace pretty close to multifamily. Personally,
why can't you build this? Zoning doesn't allow for it.
Think about, we have restrictions to building apartments because there's just no land it's not easy to find land that you can, it doesn't have wetlands, doesn't have trees, doesn't have slope and all this stuff. Like, it's hard. That's what's the natural resources are restricting our supply of multifamily. What restricts mobile home park is you could put a mobile home park in the same land. You put multifamily, but the planning doesn't want it there.
It's regulation.
The neighbors don't want it there. Nobody wants it there because these are low income people. You do get the lowest tenant in those places because you can run really nice manufactured home parks, 55 plus, and there's some manufactured home parks are much different than others. But I'm talking like literal bring your own house, put it in the space. I like the ones where they're not RV. They're not like hook it up to a trailer and leave the next day. Like, I like the ones where the house is worth $5,000, and if you wanted to move it, it would cost you $5,000. So the house never leaves.
There's also a potential for it to be a subsidized asset class. And so what we're seeing in Portland is there are actually protections being put on mobile home parks. So even if the zoning says there's a higher and better use and the property is worth more putting it to a higher and better use, there's now a protected class over manufactured home parks, mobile home parks, you cannot demo them. You cannot change the use. They have to stay mobile home parks. And so there's this, for the current homeowners, property owners, it capped their value. In some stances, lowered their value because there is a better valuation to that property. But then it does create a level of protection in for the tenant class standpoint, which then probably also says at some point in time there's going to be a subsidy to help that income stream out. So I can see it from that, like a stable asset.
So
do you
think that the jurisdictions will come in and change their mind about mobile home park and they'll allow more development of them?
No, because I don't think that's going to change. But I think the ones in the cities, there's areas where it's a part of the low income fabric of the community that cannot go away.
Yeah.
And so then if it cannot go away and it's not economically feasible to keep it, it has to be subsidized.
Yeah.
So I see that as a play in the cities.
So what you just said there then is we're not going to have more supply. So from a supply and demand standpoint, the demand is always going to be ultra high. The supply is going to remain ultra low, and it will probably become a protected class.
I think I just convinced
property.
myself to go call the manufactured park owners in the city of Portland.
We're going to make a new bet.
Yeah. Like, hey, the city screwed you. Your value just went down. You should sell it to me.
Okay, who's going to buy a mobile home park first?
Oh, dude.
You want to try this again?
No.
We got to put some money on it this time.
I'll make a bet on who's going to buy a cottage cluster built for rent first.
We already know you will.
I know.
Because you're doing it right now.
Stack it in my thing.
Did you learn everything you need to know about asset types, Trevor? You just got to think about each one of them differently. Think about your customer. Think about the tenant base.
Yeah,
sure.
Think about what they're doing to make their money, or if they're living there.
That's not what I like to think about.
You like to think about numbers.
The deal. How do you put this deal together? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I will tell you
all those numbers.
Those buildings have been for sale multiple times, and they sit and sit and sit. So one of the things I always think about in a deal is the exit. And just the first question Mike asked you is, why is it still sitting there? Yeah, I want to know. If I decide I don't like it and I want to sell it, can I? Mm-hmm. And I think the answer is, if you bought it at today's price, no, because they're trying to sell it and they keep dropping the price and they can't sell it. So they own something that can't be sold, which, by the way, at least one of those buildings was owner occupied, or at least part of it was, and it was a passion project, and they didn't buy it for math. They bought it for fun. They're very wealthy people that just wanted to own a downtown building.
Means their basis is higher, keeps it from selling.
You know, it's funny. The downtown buildings are kind of like the downtown businesses. You don't go to downtown Salem to make a ton of money in your business. You make your money somewhere else, and then your wife or somebody goes and opens up a shop downtown because they want to have a space downtown. Like, it's not the greatest place to go make a bunch of money.
It's not a business district in that aspect, like a central business district.
Yeah, so retail, I think, in downtown Salem is probably worse than office, but office in downtown Salem better be very government law related, or else, office is weird right now.
Projects like AJ's help change it into a central business district.
You're talking about the Forge?
Yeah,
Chris
and
Blackburn?
like Nordstrom's being taken down and throwing housing in. So now you have multiple apartment complexes. Now you have a renovated, restored, at scale retail place that it sounds like he's got a lot of pre-leasing.
Well, it's funny because downtown, and a lot of downtowns are like this, is we're turning into a more localized, this is a place where you walk around and you shop local little gadget shops and antique stores and bars and restaurants. It's kind of it's more of like a hangout. It's an experience-based retail.
That's what makes people have to go down there and want to go down there.
You got to want to be there. Yeah. So they got to make sure the homeless are not there. You got to make sure you got all the coffee shops and all the things you need to get people downtown. I think Salem's done a great job of improving that over the years, but it's funny because if you actually want to go buy something, you go to Lancaster Mall, which before nobody would go, and now that's where they turned the mall inside out.
Yeah.
So instead of walking into an interior mall, they made it all from the exterior and put big box discount stores in. Mm-hmm. And that's the future, right? Nobody wanted to shop at Nordstrom in Salem. We're a lower income level, but they want the Nordstrom rack over on Lancaster. It's just a shift. And so I think the way downtown Salem is sort of being reinvented will be exciting, because I think it'll create a place where people want to come and hang out and do multiple different things. But I still don't think it's a place. Maybe if you're a bar or you're a coffee shop, you might make money. Antique stores make money on their people putting their antiques in. They're just subleasing. That's how they make their money.
Yep.
They're landlords too.
Yep.
I don't think retail is a way to make money in downtown Salem. That's all I'm saying.
I agree.
Okay, so race to a mobile home park.
Let's spend all of our
Fuck
efforts.
yeah, let's go. Let's go.
Let's spend all our efforts on mobile home park
Yes.
and forget about downtown office and retail space.
Yeah, I'm gonna go tell all my staff right now. We're pivoting mobile home park. They're gonna let me.
Self-storage, mobile home park, multifamily. Value add.
It's a good thing I'm not emotional reactionary.
All right. You got any more questions? You want to wrap it up?
Nope. Gotta go.
All right. Well, thanks for listening to Deal Junkies. Please share us, and we will see you next time.